TIFU by pretending to be fluent in Spanish to impress a girl, and accidentally getting hired as an international translator for a criminal organization. So, this happened about 6 months ago, and I'm just now emotionally stable enough to relive it. I was at this house party that a friend of a friend was throwing. You know the type, people spilling drinks, a sticky kitchen floor, too many people on one couch, and the persistent smell of weed and Axe body spray. I'm not usually the most sociable guy, but I'd had a few drinks, and when I'm tipsy, I become the version of myself that I imagine in job interviews, confident, charming, creative. Dangerous combo. Enter her. I'll call her Maria. She was effortlessly beautiful, had this confident energy about her, and was casually switching between English and Spanish in conversation. I, in a move of idiotic bravado, decided that this was the moment to reinvent myself. When someone asked her where she was from and she said Madrid, I jumped in with de Madrid. Me encanta España. Now. Do I speak Spanish? No. Did I take Spanish in high school? Yes, for 2 years. Do I remember anything useful from it? Absolutely not, unless you're dying to know how to conjugate bailar in the present tense. But tipsy me was undeterred. Maria lit up when I said that, and suddenly we were talking, or rather, she was talking, and I was smiling, nodding, throwing in claro, and sí, por supuesto like a dollar store Antonio Banderas. It worked. We hit it off. Fast forward 2 weeks. We've been texting, hanging out, and I've been managing to dodge any real Spanish conversations by claiming I'm shy about speaking it. She thinks it's cute. I think I'm living on borrowed time. Then she hits me with, hey, I have a cousin visiting from Colombia. He doesn't speak much English. Want to come out with us? You could help translate. Panic. But I said yes, because of course I did. So the 3 of us meet at this quiet little lounge. I'm sweating bullets. Her cousin, Diego, is this friendly, chatty guy. Maria starts talking to him in Spanish, then looks to me, expecting me to translate what she said to English. So I start bullshitting. She says something like, he just got here this morning, he's really tired from the flight. I turn to Diego and say, el avión es muy cansado? He looks confused. Maria frowns. I pivot. I throw in random phrases I remember from Dora the Explorer, like vámonos, and el mapa, hoping that if I keep the energy up, no one will notice that I'm making 0 sense. Somehow, the night ends without disaster. I think I've pulled it off. But Diego seems interested in me. He asks for my number before leaving. Says he might have a business opportunity for someone like me. I laugh it off. 3 days later, he calls. Says he's got a job for me. Something about a company needing an interpreter for a meeting with some South American clients. Pays $500 just for a 2-hour meeting. You just have to translate Spanish to English and back. Let me tell you, $500 for 2 hours sounded a hell of a lot better than my current gig editing TikToks for a YouTube fail compilation channel. So I say yes. The next day I show up at this office building in a sketchy part of town. It's too quiet. Diego's there, in a suit, suddenly looking way more serious than before. He introduces me to El Jeef, a bald guy with a scar that looks like he lost a fight with a lawnmower. I'm trying not to crap myself. They sit me down. A bunch of guys walk in, all speaking rapid Spanish. I'm catching maybe 1 word in 10. Someone says entrega, which I think means delivery. Another says producto, which I assume is a product. I start piecing together whatever gibberish I can think of to string things along. What they say, tenemos que hacer la entrega antes del martes. El producto llegó esta mañana. What I translate, they said, the delivery must arrive before Tuesday. The product is here, early this morning. Nods of approval all around. El Jeef claps me on the back. I want to cry. It gets worse. The meeting continues, and I'm sweating through my shirt. They start talking numbers. Weights. Units. I'm totally winging it. I keep repeating phrases like yes, that sounds good, we can arrange that, and absolutely, regardless of what's actually being said. They seem thrilled. I'm terrified. Then Eljeef says something like, he's got good language. We use him again. At this point I realize, this is not a normal business. These dudes are trafficking something. Maybe drugs, maybe arms, maybe exotic lizards, I don't know, but it's 100% illegal. And they think I'm their golden goose translator. I leave the meeting with an envelope of cash and an invitation to join them next week for another negotiation. I ghost Maria. I block Diego. I consider faking my own death. Then, get this, I get a call from my mom a week later. She says, Mijo, are you working with Diego's company now? Me, what? Turns out Diego visited my mom's church to donate money in my name for their community fundraiser. He told everyone I was working with his import-export company. My mom was bragging to all her friends that I was in international business. I decide to come clean to her about everything. The fake Spanish. The sketchy meeting. The fact that I might be laundering money just by existing near Diego. She freaks out. Calls our cousin, an actual lawyer. He gives me the best advice I've ever received, get the hell out of town. I pack a bag that night. Drive 4 hours to a friend's cabin upstate. Lay low for a week. Diego keeps texting me. Where are you? Big deal coming, need you here. I ignore every message. Eventually, I get a new number, new job, at a boring office doing data entry, God bless, and I start over. Maria never texted again. Thank God. To this day, I still flinch when I hear Spanish in public. My Duolingo all sends me passive-aggressive notifications every night. I think Eljeef is still out there, wondering what happened to his favorite fake translator. I tell people I used to work in logistics. No one needs to know more than that. Moral of the story, never pretend to speak a language you don't know. It might end with you accidentally interpreting an international drug deal. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. It helps the content grow and motivates me to create even more great videos. Turn on notifications so you don't miss any new uploads. By the way, I'm curious, when do you usually watch my videos? While working, studying, or just relaxing at home? Let me know in the comments, I'd love to hear from you. Thank you for your support. TIFU by getting drunk at my boss's housewarming party and accidentally kidnapping a dog. So this happened last weekend, and I've only just now recovered enough to laugh about it without spiraling into a shame coma. Let me set the stage a bit. I, 29M, work for a mid-sized software company. It's the kind of place where the dress code is whatever doesn't smell like a gym sock, and Slack channels for memes get more action than the project boards. My boss, Laura, mid-30s, cool as hell, had just bought a new house in the suburbs and decided to throw a housewarming party for the team. She made it clear it would be chill, grill, drinks, lawn games, bring a +1 or your dog, just hang out and vibe. I should also mention that I'm pretty introverted. I like my coworkers fine, but I don't do parties much. My social battery drains fast and I'm known for my strategic Irish exits. But Laura's cool and I didn't want to be that guy who never shows up to anything, so I forced myself to go. I brought a 6-pack of decent beer, my ancient lawn chair, and a can-do attitude. Laura's house was Pinterest perfect, fairy lights, fire pit, speakers playing indie pop. Everyone was in a great mood, lounging with plates of grilled meats and beers in hand. Dogs were running around like it was their Woodstock. So far, so good. Enter the real problem, punch. See, there was this bright red, seemingly innocent bowl of Laura's special summer punch on a folding table near the grill. It tasted like tropical candy and sunshine. I had 3 plastic cups full before I realized I could no longer feel my legs properly. It hit hard. And being the lightweight I am, I went from mildly buzzed to college sophomore spring break in less than 45 minutes. This is when I started vibing way too hard with the dogs. There were like 6 dogs running around, and one in particular, a golden retriever with a blue bandana and soulful eyes, decided I was his guy. He stuck with me, leaning on my leg, licking my hand, and generally being my emotional support animal. I named him Jeremy. This is important later. I vaguely remember saying things like, "You're my best friend now," and "I love you more than most people I know." I also remember lying down on the lawn and letting Jeremy spoon me while people took photos. At some point, people started to leave. I must have blacked out the middle chunk, because my next coherent memory is me standing in my own apartment, 2 neighborhoods away, with Jeremy sitting politely in my kitchen. Let me repeat that. I took this dog home with me. I do not own a dog. I have never owned a dog. My phone was blowing up. Missed calls from unknown numbers, Slack messages from coworkers, even a "Hey, have you seen Bongo?" in the company group chat. Bongo. Not Jeremy. His name was Bongo. Cue panic. I was still drunk, or maybe hungover. It was like 3 a.m., and Bongo was just sitting there looking at me like, "Well, we made it." I fed him a slice of cheese, told him he was a very good boy, and frantically tried to figure out how to unfuel this situation. My first idea was to sneak him back into Laura's yard, Mission Impossible style. I even put on black clothes like I was going to infiltrate a secure facility and not just return a stolen retriever. But halfway to the door, I realized I couldn't even drive. So I called an Uber. Let me tell you, few things confuse an Uber driver more than a half-drunk man in stealth gear holding a golden retriever in his arms at 4 a.m. "He's not mine," I explained. "I accidentally kidnapped him." It's a long story. The driver was thankfully chill. Probably not the weirdest ride he's ever had. We pull up to Laura's place, and I see the porch light is on. I texted her something like, "I have Bongo, I'm so sorry, I love him, I didn't mean to," and approached the house. She opened the door, clearly exhausted but also trying very hard not to laugh. Behind her were 2 of my coworkers, sitting on the couch, and one of them started clapping sarcastically. Laura said something like, "You want to tell me why you took my dog home like he was a party favor?" Apparently, Bongo was hers. I was mortified. I blurted out some word salad about soulmates and punch and how Bongo chose me, and then I started crying. Not like sobbing, but the kind of emotional leak where your body just gives up on holding it together. Laura hugged me, probably to shut me up, and assured me Bongo was safe, and she appreciated me bringing him back. Apparently they'd been out looking for him and were about to call the local shelters. I Ubered home again, sans dog, and spent the next 12 hours curled up in a shame blanket. Monday morning was brutal. Everyone knew. The Slack messages were brutal. "Jeremy? Really? So when's the custody hearing? Don't let Jeremy see you drinking again." Laura has been surprisingly chill about it. She even changed her profile pic to one of me and Bongo spooning on the lawn, which is both endearing and deeply scarring. The worst part? I still kind of miss him. Anyway, that's how I drunkenly dognapped my boss's golden retriever and lived to tell the tale. I'm now banned from the punch bowl, probably forever. But I did get a new nickname at work, the Retriever. TIFU, by pretending to be my friend's therapist to help him out and accidentally getting booked by his real one. So, this happened over the course of a very weird week, and it has officially blown up in my face. For context, I'm a 29-year-old dude who works in tech, and my best friend, let's call him Matt, is the kind of guy who's always trying to get his life together but never really commits to anything longer than 2 months. Diets, jobs, girlfriends, hobbies, name it, he's bailed on it. The one exception was therapy. He got a therapist about a year ago and seemed to actually stick with it. Until last month, when he got dropped due to insurance issues. He was wrecked over it. Like, really wrecked. One night over beers, he half-jokingly said, "You know me better than anyone. You should just be my therapist." I laughed, but then he looked dead serious and said, "No, I'm not kidding. Let's do a fake session. I just need someone to talk to, and I trust you more than any stranger." So I agreed, thinking it would be a one-time thing. I pulled up a notepad, put on my best calm, therapist-y voice, and said, "So, what's on your mind today, Matt?" We both cracked up at first, but then he got into it. Like really into it. Childhood stuff, relationship regrets, work stress, things he'd never even told me before. I was kinda stunned. I gave thoughtful responses, kept the mood serious, and by the end he looked visibly lighter. Fast forward a week, and he wants to do another session. This keeps going, and I keep playing along. He starts calling me Dr. Drew, my name is Drew, not a doctor, and sends me voice memos about how the sessions are really helping. I keep reminding him this is all fake, just me being a supportive friend, but he waves it off like, yeah, but you get me. It was weird, but I felt good helping him, even if it was a little unethical. Now here's where things start spiraling. Apparently, during a visit to his HR department to ask about getting his old therapist covered again, Matt casually mentions that he's been seeing someone named Dr. Drew in the meantime, and how great I am. HR, in an attempt to be helpful, forwards this to their EAP, Employee Assistance Program, provider as a potential out-of-network therapist worth onboarding. They assume I'm legit. They Google me. And here's the kicker, I have a basic, public website for my freelance coding gigs, where I offer coaching for junior devs. Because I once jokingly called it code therapy, the HR/EAP people now think I'm some kind of tech therapist hybrid. I start getting emails from an EAP rep asking if I'd like to onboard with their provider network. I ignore it, assuming it's spam. A couple of days later, I get a phone call from a woman named Linda, very friendly, asking if I'd be available for a quick virtual meet and greet to discuss becoming a listed therapist for their company. Now, at this point, a rational person would clarify everything, right? But I was half asleep, confused, and thought she was a recruiter trying to poach me for a dev job. So I said yes. We schedule a Zoom call for the next day. Here's where I really, truly ed up. On the Zoom call, Linda starts off with, "It's so refreshing to have someone with both a clinical and a tech background. That's rare." Alarm bells should have gone off, but I was caught off guard, assumed she was talking about my coaching stuff, and played along. I literally said, "Yeah, I try to bring emotional intelligence into every client interaction." She lights up and says that's exactly the kind of approach they value. Then she asks for my license number. At that moment, I finally realize what's happening. But instead of immediately clarifying, my idiot brain panics and thinks, if I admit I've been fake therapizing someone, could I get in legal trouble, so I try to stall. I say I left it offhand and would email it later. She says okay, but she's so impressed that she's going to put me on their priority referral list. I hang up, sweating bullets. I call Matt and tell him the whole story, expecting him to be mortified. Instead, he laughs his ass off, then says, "Dude, maybe this is a sign. Maybe you should be a therapist." I yell at him for dragging me into this, but he thinks the whole thing is hilarious and starts telling other friends we know. This is where the social wildfire begins. By the end of that week, I had no fewer than 5 people in my DMs asking if I could talk to them like I talked to Matt. People were calling me the tech whisperer and asking for sessions. I panicked again and finally emailed Linda, telling her there was a huge misunderstanding and that I'm not a licensed therapist, just a software guy who likes to help friends. She didn't reply for 3 days. When she finally did, it was a terse message saying the company would be reporting the incident to their legal team and reviewing how I was listed in their system. That was 2 days ago. I haven't heard anything since, but I've been living in fear that someone's going to come after me for impersonating a mental health professional. Meanwhile, Matt still thinks it's the funniest thing ever and now refers to me as Dr. Drew every time we're in a group chat. I've begged him to stop, but now our friend Sarah wants to book a session. I never even wanted this gig. I just wanted to be a good friend. Now I might end up on some sort of scam watch list. And the worst part? I still have his deepest emotional baggage in my head, and no degree to back it up. So yeah, get up. Really get up. TIFU by going to my boss's house for dinner and accidentally unleashing a chain of chaos that ended with the fire department and a very angry parrot. So this happened last Friday. I, 28, work in a mid-sized marketing agency in Chicago. I recently got a promotion, and as a sort of welcome to management gesture, my boss, Amanda, 42F, invited me to dinner at her house with a few other team leads and their partners. It was one of those casual but definitely a test situations, you know? Like no pressure, but also don't be a feral animal in front of the C-suite. The night started off okay. I wore a decent blazer, brought a bottle of Pinot Noir, and did my best small talk. Amanda lives in this beautiful 2-story townhouse in the suburbs, filled with art that looks like it costs more than my student loans. Everything had that "don't touch it unless you make 6 figures" vibe. Now, the first red flag was the parrot. Yes, Amanda owns a parrot. A huge, rainbow-colored macaw named Bongo. Bongo lives in a gold-accented cage in the living room and has a vocabulary that would get a sailor banned from Xbox Live. Apparently, Bongo used to belong to Amanda's ex-husband, a British DJ with a cocaine problem. That's not super relevant, but it's something I learned later and somehow feels crucial to understanding the bird's energy. Anyway, about an hour into the evening, Amanda offers a tour of her home. We go upstairs to see her office, which is decorated like a Pinterest board exploded. Lots of succulents, inspirational quotes in curly fonts, and a Himalayan salt lamp. At one point, I realize I need to pee. Amanda points me toward the guest bathroom at the end of the hall. Easy. Except I open the wrong door. I don't know why I didn't notice the litter box in the hallway or the faint meowing sound. But I walk into a room and immediately get hit by the overwhelming smell of cat pee. Inside are 3 of the most angry-looking hairless cats I've ever seen. One of them hisses at me. I panic, step back, and shut the door. I go to the actual bathroom, do my business, wash my hands like a civilized person, and return downstairs. Amanda is in the kitchen finishing the last touches on some homemade butternut squash ravioli, which, to her credit, looked incredible. The wine is flowing, the music is tasteful indie folk, and Bongo is screaming arsebiscuit from his cage. Here's where it all starts to unravel. Amanda asks me to help bring the salad bowl to the table. I go into the kitchen and see it sitting next to the stove. Just as I reach for it, I accidentally bump one of the knobs on the gas range. It doesn't ignite, just clicks, and I think I've turned it off. I hadn't. I carry the salad out, sit down, and we all start eating. 15 minutes into dinner, Amanda's partner Kyle says, "Do you smell gas?" At first, everyone's like maybe it's the candles, but no, this is straight up stove gas. Amanda runs into the kitchen and immediately screams, "Who touched the stove?" I sit frozen, fork halfway to my mouth, knowing full well it was me. I open my mouth to confess, but just as I do, Bongo starts screaming Kyle farted. Kyle farted over and over, which somehow adds to the chaos. Amanda opens the windows, starts airing things out, and is visibly trying not to lose her mind. At this point, I decide it's a good idea to come clean. I tell her I might have accidentally bumped the knob. She stares at me for a long second, says okay, accidents happen, but in the kind of tone that means she'll never trust me again around open flames. But wait. We're not done. While all of this is happening, the cats upstairs have somehow gotten out of their room. One of the guests, Mark, a senior strategist, has a mild cat allergy. He starts sneezing violently. His wife, who apparently has never seen a cat before, tries to shoo one of them out by clapping loudly and shouting scat. The cat leaps onto the table, knocks over Amanda's wine glass, and in the process startles Bongo, who now starts screaming, "We're all gonna die." Amanda's dog, a tiny nervous dachshund named Peanut, starts barking like it's the apocalypse. Someone opens the back door to let the cats out, but Bongo, who apparently is allowed to free fly sometimes, sees the chaos and decides it's his moment to shine. He flies out of his cage, squawks something that sounded disturbingly like Coke Party, and zooms straight out the open door. Amanda screams. Kyle drops his fork. I stand up, bump the table, and the butternut squash ravioli goes flying. Amanda, near tears, yells for everyone to stay calm while she grabs a flashlight and goes outside to look for her parrot. And then a neighbor calls the fire department. Why? Because the open windows, the gas smell, and the shouts of "we're all gonna die" made it sound like there was a domestic gas explosion waiting to happen. 3 firefighters show up with full gear. One of them, bless this man, gets distracted by the parrot, now perched on a tree branch, and tries to coax it down with what I can only describe as erotic baby talk. Eventually, they get Bongo back using a piece of string cheese as bait. Amanda refuses to look at me the rest of the evening. The dinner is basically over. People start leaving with half-hearted goodbyes and awkward "we should do this again sometime" lies. I hang back to apologize again. Amanda nods once, then says maybe stick to ordering DoorDash next time, and closes the door in my face. On the Uber ride home, Bongo's voice echoed in my head like a curse from a vengeful spirit, "Arsabiscuit. Arsabiscuit." I haven't been invited to another work social event since TIFU by volunteering to dog sit for my boss and ending up in a neighborhood-wide manhunt wearing nothing but a Pikachu onesie. I work at a mid-sized tech company that's laid back on the surface but is secretly a pressure cooker of passive-aggressive emails and unspoken feuds over whiteboard marker colors. I'm in my mid-20s, trying to stay low-key, just deliver code and avoid unnecessary attention. So naturally, I made the absolute worst decision of my career and volunteered to dog sit for my boss while he and his wife went to Aspen for a long weekend. The dog, a neurotic rescue greyhound named Maestro, is apparently very sensitive to routine disruption. Cool. He came with a binder of instructions, a specific playlist on Spotify to soothe his anxiety, and a strict no people food rule, which I later found out the hard way was not just about diet, but behaviorally necessary. My boss lives in this ultra-ritzy suburb where the mailboxes cost more than my car. I get there Friday afternoon, collect the keys from the neighbor, and get a whiff of what's to come when she says, "Oh, brave soul. If he starts doing the spinning thing, call me." Or animal control. It depends. I laughed. She did not. Night 1, things are fine. I feed Maestro the correct artisanal dog food, yes, I'm serious, play his Spotify mix, lo-fi for canines, and he stares into my soul for 20 minutes before passing out on a memory foam dog bed that I swear is comfier than my own mattress. Saturday morning is when the trouble begins. I decide to do a quick yoga session in the living room because I'm trying to convince myself I have a wellness routine. Maestro watches me like I'm performing witchcraft. I'm in downward dog, ironically, and I hear a growl. I look up and he's got one of my socks in his mouth, tail stiff, staring at me like we're about to duel. I make the mistake of lunging for the sock. He bolts. Full-on greyhound, 45 miles per hour through the house. He loops the kitchen island like a NASCAR driver, knocking over a $300 coffee maker in the process. The sock is shredded. I finally trap him in the laundry room, where he proceeds to do the aforementioned spinning thing. It's not cute. It's like a tornado of limbs and screaming. I text the neighbor in panic. No response. By 1 p.m., Maestro has calmed down after I hand-fed him bits of dehydrated kangaroo meat, again, not joking, and played his favorite song on repeat for 45 minutes. Things are stable. I reward myself with a nap. I wake up at 3:30 p.m. to silence. Too much silence. I go to check on Maestro. The laundry room door is open. Window ajar. He is gone. Gone. I spiral. I call his name like a lunatic, run up and down the neighborhood, and ask rich suburbanites if they've seen a greyhound with abandonment issues. A woman walking a corgi offers to help and introduces herself as Cheryl. Cheryl is a godsend. We split up. Here's where it gets worse. In my frantic state, I didn't change out of my nap attire, which is a one-piece fleece Pikachu onesie I got as a gag gift that has, tragically, become my go-to-comfort outfit. So now I'm running through a millionaire neighborhood, mid-afternoon on a Saturday, screaming Maestro while dressed like Pikachu. Cheryl texts me that Maestro was spotted running toward the local park. I bolt in that direction and get there to see a full-blown crowd gathered around what appears to be a man holding a leash attached to nothing. Upon closer inspection, it's Maestro. Somehow, he slipped his collar and then, in some freak stroke of fate, decided to follow a guy who had the same Spotify playlist playing on a Bluetooth speaker. The dude is a chill stoner type who thought Maestro was some sort of spiritual animal guide and just went with it. I'm trying to explain the situation while catching my breath, drenched in sweat, still very much in the Pikachu onesie, when a cop car rolls up. Apparently, someone called in a possible domestic incident involving a screaming adult in costume chasing children. Which, okay, fair. I do look like a cautionary tale. I try to explain to the officer. He asks for ID. I don't have it. I left it in my real clothes. At the boss's house. Which I am now locked out of, because Maestro somehow hit the smart lock button while doing his Tasmanian devil routine earlier. So now I'm sitting on the curb, with a runaway greyhound licking my face, a cop who does not believe in Pikachu-based alibis, and Cheryl trying to vouch for me by pulling up my LinkedIn profile. The officer finally calls my boss, who picks up in Aspen, and I have the distinct privilege of hearing him say, "Wait, he's wearing what?" The boss confirms my identity, then proceeds to lecture me on speakerphone about routine stability and personal responsibility while I sit there like a kindergarten dropout. Eventually, the cop lets me off with a warning and an amused smirk. Cheryl helps me break into the house using a hidden key she wasn't supposed to know about. The final cherry on this disaster Sunday is that Maestro, in his post-park bliss, decides to reward himself by eating half a bag of trail mix I had left on the kitchen counter, raisins included. In case you don't know, raisins are highly toxic to dogs. I discover this 15 minutes later when he starts dry heaving under the coffee table. Cue another panic, a $600 emergency vet visit, which I had to pay for out of pocket initially, and a stern warning from the vet that Maestro is a drama queen with a stomach of steel. Boss comes back Sunday night. Maestro is alive, if emotionally scarred. I recount the events. Boss blinks twice, says nothing for a full 30 seconds, then pours us both a whiskey. He tells me I'm never allowed near his dog again. And that I'm getting a raise. Apparently, this was some sort of trial-by-fire hazing ritual no one told me about. Cheryl texted me later to say the neighborhood now refers to me as Pika Boy. I'll take it. But I'm never pet-sitting again. TIFU by accidentally destroying a priceless family heirloom and blaming it on a ghost. This happened about 3 weeks ago and I'm still dealing with the fallout. For context, my family owns a large, very old Victorian-style house that's been passed down for 5 generations. My great-great-grandfather built it with his own hands, and it's full of antique furniture, creaky floorboards, and stories about relatives who allegedly never left. You know the vibe. My grandmother is the current owner and she treats the house like a museum. You're not allowed to move anything without permission, and God help you if you even think about touching the grandfather clock in the main hallway. She still refers to it as the beating heart of the house. So naturally, when I came to house sit for a week while my grandparents went on a river cruise in Europe, I was on high alert. No parties. No friends over. Don't touch anything. Feed the cat. Water the plants. She even left a laminated checklist on the fridge in case I forgot. I'm 28. But fair enough. Everything was going fine for the first few days. I worked remotely from the old study, made sure the plants didn't die, and dealt with a cat that clearly resented me for not being my grandmother. I actually started to enjoy the solitude. The house is kind of beautiful when you're not worried about someone breathing too hard near a Ming vase. Anyway, it was around nightfall that things started to get weird. I was brushing my teeth when I heard what sounded like soft footsteps coming from the hallway. I paused. The house is old and makes weird noises, but this was rhythmic. Steady. Like someone pacing. The cat was in the sink, glaring at me, so it wasn't him. I walked out to the hallway, heart doing a little nervous dance, but there was nothing. Just the old grandfather clock, ticking away like always. I chalked it up to paranoia, went to bed, and tried not to think about how the hallway smelled like lavender all of a sudden. My grandma uses lavender sachets in the linen closet. Weird, but whatever. The next night, the footsteps happened again. This time I was in the living room. It sounded like someone walking in the hallway, stopping near the study door, then turning around. I checked. Nothing. But I noticed the clock had stopped ticking. That's never happened before. I texted my grandma, asking if it was normal. No reply, probably off the grid on the Danube or something. So I made the mistake of trying to fix it. I opened the glass panel, gave the pendulum a gentle push, and it started swinging again. The clock groaned a little but came back to life. Problem solved. Or so I thought. 2 nights later, I woke up at 3:12 a.m. to a loud crack followed by a thud so intense it shook the floorboards. I scrambled out of bed, ran into the hallway, and saw the unthinkable. The grandfather clock was on the floor. Shattered. The ornate wood splintered, the glass in pieces, the inner gears scattered like a watch exploded. It looked like it had just fallen forward, but there was no reason for it to do that. The floor was even, no wind, nothing nearby. I just stood there in my boxers, completely frozen. I didn't know what to do. So I panicked. In my sleep-deprived, adrenaline-fueled haze, I did the dumbest thing possible. I convinced myself that maybe, just maybe, it wasn't my fault. Maybe there really was something weird going on. After all, I'd heard footsteps. The clock stopped for no reason. The house felt different. What if it was haunted? My grandma always said it had personality. So, like a coward, I crafted a story. When she and my grandpa got home 2 days later, I greeted them with a nervous smile and the worst acting performance of my life. I told them I'd been hearing footsteps. Doors creaking open. The smell of lavender. I even threw in a fake cold spot in the hallway. Then I told them that I'd woken up to a loud bang and found the clock destroyed on the floor. My grandma's face went pale. She looked at the broken remains like someone had kicked her childhood in the teeth. She didn't say much. Just walked over, knelt down, and picked up a bent gear like it was a dead bird. My grandpa just muttered "Jesus" under his breath. They called a family friend who deals in antiques to come look at it. He said it was totaled, that it would take thousands to repair and even then it might never work the same. My grandma took it hard. Like, not just sad but genuinely hurt. She started talking about how it was made from walnut grown on the family farm, how her father taught her to wind it when she was 7, how it was one of the last things her mother touched before she died. I felt sick. But I doubled down. Ghost story and all. My grandma even started talking to some local paranormal historian to see if there was any record of hauntings in the area. I overheard her saying, maybe the clock breaking was a sign, and that's when the guilt hit me full force. I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her face when she saw the clock. I saw my grandpa quietly picking up the brass pieces and setting them on a towel like a medic collecting organs. I became physically ill, nausea, headaches, full-on stress sweats at work. Finally, I broke. I told them everything. The footsteps? House creaks. The lavender smell? I spilled her sachet bag while doing laundry. The cold spot? Bad insulation. And the clock? That was all me. I touched it, probably nudged it off balance, and I must have caused it to fall days later. I didn't mean to. But I lied. Repeatedly. To their faces. My grandma didn't say a word. She just stood up and left the room. My grandpa stayed behind, rubbed his face like he'd aged 10 years, and said, "I appreciate you telling the truth. But you should have told us when it happened. You let your grandma believe this house was haunted instead of just owning a mistake." I didn't see her for the rest of the day. The next morning, I found a note on the kitchen table. It said, "You can't replace it. But you can start making it right." Attached was a list of antique restoration experts and a brochure for a woodworking class. So now, I'm spending my weekends learning how to carve wood, glue veneer, and restore old furniture. It's slow. The damage is beyond my ability to fix alone. But I go to class every Saturday. Sometimes my grandma joins me, mostly to supervise. She still doesn't talk much, but she always brings 2 sandwiches. One for her. One for me. I don't think the clock will ever tick again. But maybe that's not the point anymore. TIFU by accidentally joining a cult while trying to impress my crush, so this happened about a year ago, but I still get cold sweats thinking about it. I, 29M, had just moved to a new city for work and didn't know many people. I'm a software engineer, which means my social life was limited to my team of other engineers who only left their homes when Uber Eats didn't deliver. One weekend, a coworker dragged me to a mutual friend's birthday picnic at a park. I showed up, awkwardly stood around the fruit tray for an hour, and was about to sneak out when I saw her, Sophie. She was standing in a sunbeam like she was summoned by angels. Red hair, paint on her hands, Doc Martens, a leather-bound notebook under one arm. She looked like she wrote poetry on fogged windows and had opinions about the moon. Naturally, I made a beeline for her and tried to strike up conversation. I think I said something like, "I like your boots. They look aggressive." She laughed. That was all the green light I needed. We spent the rest of the afternoon talking about everything from Van Gogh to vegan cheese. She's vegan, I'm not, but I pretended I was mildly interested in nutritional yeast. Before she left, she mentioned that she hosts a weekly gathering with some friends who are into energy work and consciousness. That should have been my first red flag. But my brain translated that into, * she's into cool spiritual stuff, maybe meditation or yoga. * I told her I'd love to come. She smiled and wrote the address on a piece of brown recycled paper. I was in. The next Thursday, I showed up at the address. It was a large, ivy-covered house on the edge of town that looked like it had been featured in a murder mystery. A guy with a man bun and a tunic answered the door and greeted me with a bow and the words, "Welcome, brother of the flame." I thought, * cool, weird Burning Man vibes. I can vibe with this, *. I took off my shoes and stepped inside. The house smelled like sage and armpit. Everyone was barefoot. There were about 20 people sitting on cushions in a circle around a huge symbol on the floor drawn in chalk. It looked vaguely Celtic, but with more triangles and snakes. Sophie waved me over and I sat next to her. She whispered, "Tonight is a special night. You came at the right time." I smiled, completely unaware that I was about to ruin my life. The leader, a tall man in a crimson robe named Oral, entered the room. He had this intense presence, like a guy who had read The Art of War one too many times. He welcomed me specifically, saying something about a new vessel entering the current. I gave a small, polite wave and tried not to look like someone who had only come here to flirt with a hot girl. The next 2 hours were a whirlwind. We chanted. We hummed. People cried. Someone spoke in the language of the original flame, which sounded like a cross between Klingon and demonic Sims. I was freaked out but tried to play it cool. I didn't want Sophie to think I was close-minded. At the end of the night, everyone stood up and formed a circle. Oral started going around, marking people's foreheads with ash. When he got to me, he paused. "New fire," he said. "Would you accept the right of embers?" Everyone turned to look at me. Sophie was smiling like this was also normal. I panicked and nodded. "Yeah, sure," I said, as if he'd asked if I wanted dessert. Big mistake. They led me to another room where I was given a rough linen robe and told to cleanse my worldly ties. This apparently meant taking off all my clothes and placing them into a box labeled shed skins. I asked where I could keep my phone and someone just whispered, "You won't need it where you're going." They walked me back out in the robe, blindfolded me, and then guided me down a hallway that smelled like wet moss and incense. I started to sweat. My inner monologue was screaming. But I was too deep in now. Too many people watching. Sophie was watching. They sat me down in a chair and poured cold water over my head. Oral began speaking in that same weird language while others chanted behind him. Then he cut a lock of my hair, whispered, "You are now a vessel of the flame," and the room erupted in cheers. I was officially inducted. The next few weeks were bizarre. I went back every Thursday because I didn't know how to get out of it. They gave me a new name, Kale. I was now Kale of the Third Wind. They made me delete my social media. I had to stop drinking coffee and instead drink this root-based tea that tasted like earthy sadness. I also had to memorize a mantra that was literally 73 words long. I kept going because 1, Sophie, and 2, I genuinely thought if I bailed, they might come to my apartment and burn me alive or something. One time I skipped a session and they left a small bowl of ash outside my door. I don't know what it meant, but it felt like a threat. Things came to a head when Oral announced the group would be taking a pilgrimage to the mountains for a weekend retreat. It was time to awaken the flame within. I said I had work. Oral said, "Your true work begins now." That night, I decided I had to get out. I Googled cult exit strategies at 2 a.m. One suggested faking a family emergency. Another said I should leave town. I went with the classic, ghost and block. I changed my number. I moved apartments, my lease was ending anyway. I started going to therapy and told my therapist everything. He laughed for a solid minute before saying, "Yeah, man, you definitely joined a cult." Sophie tried to email me a few times. I never replied. I hope she's okay. She seemed sweet, if mildly brainwashed. I still can't see herbal tea without gagging. Anyway, that's the story of how I accidentally joined a cult to impress a girl and became Kale of the Third Wind for approximately 6 weeks. If any of them ever find this post, please don't burn my new apartment. This happened last weekend, and I'm still reeling from the aftermath. I didn't think it was going to be a big deal. I didn't think I'd end up in an all-out shouting match with the HOA president, or that my rooster would trigger a chain reaction that ultimately led to a visit from animal control and what I can only describe as the most humiliating neighborhood group email I've ever read. Okay, let me back up. I live in a suburban development that tries very hard to pretend it's a gated community, but it's not. It's just a bunch of 2000s-era cookie-cutter homes squeezed next to each other with lawns that all look the same and about 7 too many no soliciting signs. We've got a very intense HOA, like, power trip intense. They once fined my neighbor for leaving his trash bin visible for 3 hours too long. That kind of intense. I've had beef with the HOA for a while. They keep targeting my yard for stupid things like grass too long or garden gnome is too expressive. I wish I were kidding. My gnome was making a face and they said it violated the visual harmony clause. So I've been waiting for my chance to call them out on their nonsense. Enter Kevin. Kevin is my rooster. He's not a pet in the traditional sense. I didn't set out looking for poultry companionship, but my cousin runs a small farm outside the city, and a few months back she asked if I could take in one of her birds temporarily while they did some coop renovations. I agreed, and long story short, Kevin and I bonded. He's got this attitude that just cracks me up. He struts around like he owns the place, makes this weird half-growl sound when he's annoyed, and for some reason loves classical music. I started playing it for him one day as a joke and he now refuses to sleep without Vivaldi. Anyway, Kevin has been living in a small backyard setup I built for him. Quiet, clean, barely even noticeable. Or so I thought. Last week, I get a letter from the HOA saying that someone filed a noise complaint due to morning disturbances consistent with crowing. They included a printout of some HOA bylaw about unauthorized livestock. I was told to remove Kevin within 7 days or face escalating fines. I was pissed. Kevin is not loud. He crows, sure, but he's not some wild rooster echoing across the valley. You can barely hear him inside the house. Besides, dogs bark all the time around here and no one says anything. I called the HOA and asked to speak at the next meeting. They said fine, but told me I could only speak during the open comment section and I had to keep it under 3 minutes. I said cool. And then I had the worst idea I've ever had in my life. I decided to bring Kevin with me. My logic, if you can even call it that, was that if people could see Kevin, really see him, they'd understand that he wasn't a nuisance. That he was adorable. That he had vibes. So the evening of the meeting, I put Kevin in a little travel carrier, tucked some grapes in there to keep him occupied, and walked into the community center like a man on a mission. It went downhill immediately. First of all, Kevin crowed. Loudly. The acoustics in that room were unforgiving. People jumped. A baby started crying. Someone near the front gasped, "Is that a chicken?" I corrected them, politely but firmly, "He's a rooster, and his name is Kevin." The HOA president, a retired insurance adjuster named Frank who I'm 90% sure polishes his bald spot, was not amused. He said I couldn't bring livestock into the building. I told him Kevin wasn't livestock. I told him Kevin was an emotional support animal. This, friends, was my fatal error. Frank stared at me like I had just told him I communed with ghosts. You have documentation for that? Now here's where I really screwed up. I did have documentation. Sort of. I found one of those questionable online sites that let you generate an emotional support animal letter after a consultation. It cost me $49 and took about 5 minutes. I had it printed and stapled. Legally binding? Debatable. Plausible enough to make a point in a HOA meeting? I thought so. I handed the paper over like I was presenting a tax return. Frank read it. His lip curled. "This is a cockamamie piece of garbage," he said, no irony whatsoever. "You're making a mockery of this meeting." I replied, "And you're making a mockery of property rights." This, it turns out, is not something you want to say to a man who once fined someone for having a pink front door. Frank banged the gavel and called for a recess. During the break, Kevin crowed again. I think it echoed off the ceiling. People started murmuring. One woman took out her phone and started recording. Another HOA board member whispered, "This is a liability." I knew I was losing ground, so I tried to calm Kevin down. I pulled out my phone and started playing Vivaldi softly. He responded immediately, eyes drooped, feathers fluffed. For one shining moment, it worked. He started to nod off in his little carrier. Peace. And then someone's service dog noticed him. Chaos. The dog started barking and lunging. Its owner tried to hold it back. Kevin, now wide awake and furious, let out a noise that sounded like a demon being exorcised. He somehow popped the latch on the carrier and exploded out like a feathered grenade. Feathers everywhere. Kevin flew, not well, but enough, to the other side of the room, landed on the snack table, and began pecking furiously at a plate of sugar cookies. The dog broke free. Someone screamed. A folding chair toppled over. Kevin crowed like it was the end of the world. It took 3 people to catch him. One of them got scratched. I was told, in very clear terms, that I was banned from all future HOA meetings until further notice. Frank threatened to press charges for intentional disruption. I laughed. Kevin pooped on the floor. 2 days later, animal control showed up. They were surprisingly chill about it, but told me I couldn't keep a rooster within city limits. Turns out the HOA was right about that part. Who knew? So I had to take Kevin back to my cousin's farm. We were both heartbroken. He looked at me through the wire cage like I'd betrayed him. The kicker? Someone posted the video of the whole debacle to the neighborhood Facebook group. It's been viewed over 12,000 times. The caption reads, "The chicken incident, a cautionary tale." I'm now known as Rooster Guy every time I walk my dog. Hey, friends! If you enjoy this content, don't forget to like the video and share your thoughts in the comments. We really want to know what you like and what can be improved. What do you think of the video? Are there any topics you'd like to see in future videos? Your feedback really helps us get better. Thanks for being with us. So this happened last weekend, and I still can't make eye contact with anyone in her family. I've been dating my girlfriend Amanda for a little over a year. We've met each other's families a few times, but I haven't been deeply embedded into the clan yet. Her family is close-knit and they love traditions, one of which is a massive Easter party at her aunt and uncle's house, complete with a neighborhood egg hunt, cookout, and someone dressing up as the Easter Bunny to entertain the kids. This year, Amanda's cousin, the usual Easter Bunny, couldn't make it, so her mom asked if anyone wanted to volunteer. Amanda, bless her heart, chirped up and said, "Logan will do it," before even asking me. I didn't want to seem like a buzzkill, so I agreed. The job? Dress up in a bunny suit, hide eggs, hop around, take photos, and hand out candy. Easy. Fun, even. I thought this would be a great way to make a good impression, so I decided to go all out. Not just wear the suit, but really become the bunny. Amanda sent me a photo of the suit, which her aunt kept in a plastic tub in the attic. I figured I'd show up a little early, get dressed, and pop out just in time for the kids to lose their minds. The problems began when I got the brilliant idea to add my own flair to the costume. Since I do voice acting stuff as a hobby, I practiced a whimsical voice for Bunny Logan. I even brought a Bluetooth speaker hidden inside a basket that would play Easter-themed music, like that old Peter Cottontail song, to really sell the vibe. I was ready. Saturday morning comes. I arrive, grab the tub with the suit, and change in the basement. No one else is down there. I'm putting on the full-body fuzzy monstrosity when I notice it smells weird. A mix of attic mold and fabric softener from 1997. But no matter. I finish getting dressed, crank the speaker on low, and start heading up the stairs in full bunny mode. It's worth noting that the vision in the bunny head is terrible. I could see directly in front of me, but my peripheral vision was non-existent. This will be important later. So I burst out the back door into the yard like some kind of fluffy deity. Kids scream. Parents laugh. I'm waving, doing a cringy little hop dance, tossing eggs out of a basket like a deranged Pez dispenser. People are loving it. I'm loving it. I'm the bunny. Then came the sack race. One of the kids asked if the Easter Bunny could race with them. I couldn't exactly say no with 20 toddlers chanting BUN New York. BUN New York, so I clumsily nodded, climbed into a sack, and got into position. 3, 2, 1. Go. I jump once. Twice. On the third jump, my foot snags the edge of the sack. I go flying forward. Arms outstretched, body in full fuzzball flight, I land face first on the lawn. There's a collective gasp. Kids scream, but it's unclear if it's horror or joy. I try to play it off, waving my paw like, haha, I'm okay. But the head of the bunny suit shifts from the impact, and suddenly I can see what I couldn't before, a massive rip down the side of the suit's torso, right where the Velcro meets the zipper. I try to stand. Something feels loose. The zipper had burst completely open in the fall. Now, this wouldn't be a huge issue except that I had made the extremely poor decision to wear nothing but boxer briefs under the suit. Not even tight ones. Just a loose, breezy pair of navy blue boxers with rubber ducks on them. So now I'm standing in front of at least 30 children and all their parents, half of my bunny torso peeled open like a banana, exposing way more of Logan than anyone asked for. Gasps. Laughter. Screaming. One mom immediately covers her kid's eyes and yells, "The bunny is broken." I try to turn and run back to the house, but the bunny feet have no traction. I slip on an egg, because of course I do, and land hard on my side. My speaker goes flying and starts blasting "Here Comes Peter Cottontail" at full volume. I finally make it inside, tripping over a garden hose, slamming into a patio chair, and hitting the sliding door so hard it rattles. Someone inside screams. I fumble the door open and flee inside like I'm being chased by a biblical plague. Amanda meets me in the hallway. She's covering her mouth in horror, which I stupidly interpret as laughing at first. What the hell happened? I fell and the suit exploded. I show her the rip, the speaker, my bleeding elbow, and the faint outline of a duck on my boxers. She doesn't say anything. Just turns and walks away. I change back into my clothes and hide in the laundry room. Eventually Amanda's dad comes in, pauses, and says, "Well, son, you certainly made a memorable impression." Later, I learn that several kids are now terrified of the Easter Bunny. One cried so hard he threw up. Another asked if the bunny was just a man who exploded. A third told his mom, "I saw his belly button." That's not right. Amanda didn't speak to me for the rest of the party. When we got home, she said, "You tried. I'll give you that. But you tried too hard." Fair. Completely fair. Worst part? Her aunt texted the next day, "Thanks for being the bunny. Hope your hip's okay. Might want to wear pants next time, lol." I don't know if I'll ever be invited back. I probably wouldn't go even if I was. Somewhere, deep in that suburban neighborhood, are a bunch of scarred children whispering about the year the Easter Bunny flashed them, blasted music, and wiped out in the grass. Happy Easter. This happened a few months ago, but it still haunts me every time I hear the phrase open communication. I, 28M, work as a project manager for a mid-sized tech company. I've been here for about 3 years, and while I wouldn't call it my dream job, it pays the bills, the team is cool, and I have a solid relationship with my boss, Mark, mid-40s, classic Patagonia vest-wearing middle manager who listens to Joe Rogan and once tried to convince the office to do ayahuasca together for team bonding. So, I'm at this company party, one of those corporate casual but not too casual rooftop mixers with overpriced catering, a live jazz trio, and way too many people pretending to like each other. I'm 2 whiskeys in and standing by the taco station when Mark comes over, a bit more flushed than usual. He's got a drink in hand and is grinning like a teenager who just got away with something. "Hey man," he says, "this is Vanessa." Standing next to him is a woman who is very much not his wife. I know his wife. I met her at last year's holiday party. She's got the whole Earth Mother vibe, homemade granola, runs a wellness blog, makes you feel guilty for using plastic. This woman, Vanessa, is giving off strong opposite energy, tall, high heels, leather jacket, red lipstick, and the kind of laugh that makes you feel like you're already in trouble. "Nice to meet you," I say, trying to keep it professional, but Mark claps a hand on my shoulder and says, "Don't worry, she's cool. Very cool." And that's how I got roped into wingmaning my boss cheating on his wife. The rest of the night, I'm stuck chatting with Vanessa, who is sharp, funny, and clearly knows this is an affair situation. I try to maintain plausible deniability, but Mark keeps circling back, tossing out comments like, "Can you believe we finally pulled this off?" and "Man, it's nice to get away from everything, right?" At one point, Vanessa goes to the bathroom and I turn to Mark and say, "Hey, man. Is this a thing?" And he gives me this smug grin and goes, Let's just say I've been in a cage for 15 years. It's time to fly. I want to vanish. Fast forward a week, and Mark starts coming to me like I'm his confidant. He starts using our one-on-ones to vent. Not about work, but about her, how Vanessa gets him, how he's spiritually aligned with her, how his wife doesn't appreciate his growth as a person. He starts saying things like, "You're emotionally intelligent. You get it." And the fool that I am, I nod and give neutral responses like, "Sounds like you need to figure out what you really want." Well, one day, after a particularly long meeting, Mark texts me and asks if I'm free for lunch. I say sure, assuming it's work stuff. We go to this weird hipster vegan place, his wife's influence, he claims, and over lentil patties he says he wants to tell his wife. I say, that's a big step, thinking this is the end of my unsolicited soap opera subscription. It was the beginning. Because the next week, I get called into a meeting room and there's Mark, his wife, and a box of tissues. The moment I walk in, I know something is wrong. His wife is red-eyed, Mark looks sheepish, and the air is thick enough to choke on. "Thanks for coming," his wife says, motioning for me to sit. I sit. Mark says, "I thought it might help if you could give some insight." Me, insight, into what? His wife, Mark tells me you've been giving him some really valuable advice. I look at Mark, who is now pretending to be deeply invested in a speck on the table. I realize, too late, that I have been promoted to unpaid marriage counselor. For the next hour, I sit through what is essentially a live marital breakdown, with both of them turning to me every few minutes like I'm supposed to referee. Didn't he say I was cold? That I don't support him? I just wanted you to know what I've been feeling. And then, you told him to open up, didn't you? I try to be diplomatic. I didn't tell him anything directly. I just said, but it's too late. I am now a part of this marriage. I am, by all appearances, the third wheel on the world's worst tricycle. I leave the meeting feeling like I've just aged 10 years. I start avoiding Mark. No more lunches, no more heart-to-hearts. But like a haunted man who tasted freedom and can't go back to the chains, he keeps finding me. He starts sending me long Slack messages about how he's processing everything and how he and his wife are trying polyamory. I did not need to know that. Then it gets worse. He brings both Vanessa and his wife to a company picnic. Together, says it's part of their exploration phase. Vanessa is now suddenly acting territorial. His wife is overly nice to me, thanking me for starting the dialogue. I become known in the office as the guy who got the boss into polyamory, which is not a LinkedIn endorsement I wanted. After a few weeks, Vanessa breaks things off, apparently realizing she didn't sign up for the full therapist package. Mark spirals. His wife decides she's done compromising her truth, and starts dating a yoga instructor named River who makes his own kombucha. Now Mark is the one trying to win her back. And me? I'm just here trying to finish Q2 goals while my boss cries in the break room and his soon-to-be ex-wife keeps bringing me weird herbal tea as thanks for my guidance. Last week, HR scheduled a conflict mediation and emotional boundaries seminar. Pretty sure it's aimed at me. So yeah. I just wanted a taco. Now I'm the accidental homewrecker turned spiritual guide in a very messy midlife crisis. TIFU. TIFU by pretending to be a ghost in an Airbnb to prank my friends and somehow spiraling into what I can only describe as a low-budget horror movie with a plot twist I didn't ask for. So this happened 2 weeks ago, and I've only just now stopped hyperventilating long enough to tell the tale. A group of my college friends and I, 6 of us total, planned a weekend getaway in upstate New York to unwind. We're all mid to late 20s now, adulting at various levels of success, so the idea of escaping to a big-ass cabin with a fireplace, board games, too much booze, and spotty cell service felt like paradise. We found a beautiful listing that fit all our needs. It was listed as Rustic Mountain Getaway, former hunting lodge. Creepy, sure, but mostly charming. There was even a guest book full of handwritten notes like "Thanks for the great stay" and "Beautiful views," which in hindsight is creepier than it should be. Now here's the important context: I'm the designated jokester of the group. You know the type, makes a dumb voice while ordering at a drive-thru, narrates horror movies in a fake British accent, etc. My friends hate how much they laugh at my antics, so I figured I'd dial it up for this trip. I'd been watching a bunch of TikToks about people faking ghost encounters, and I thought, why not do my own haunted Airbnb prank? The idea was innocent. I brought a white bedsheet, a cheap voice recorder, and a Bluetooth speaker. The plan was to set it up late Friday night after everyone had gone to bed, play some creepy whispering audio, and then float the sheet past someone's room. Classic Scooby-Doo level prank. No harm. No foul. So, Friday night rolls around. We drink, eat, play Cards Against Humanity, the usual stuff. Around 1 a.m., I sneak out of my room with the gear. I place the speaker near the hallway and start the whisper track, just stuff like "Get out," and "You shouldn't be here," and then I creep down the hallway in the sheet like the world's dumbest ghost burrito. Except the reaction I got wasn't the one I expected. Nobody screamed. Nobody laughed. I heard a door slam. Then complete silence. I took off the sheet, half annoyed, and walked down the hall. That's when I noticed the bathroom light was on. I knocked, jokingly, "The ghost says come out." No answer. I pushed the door open and found nothing. Just the window wide open, the screen popped out, and no sign of anyone. Panic started to bubble up. I went room by room. All 5 of my friends were still asleep or groggy, none of them had left their rooms. I double-checked. I was freaked but convinced I'd just imagined it. Maybe the wind blew the window open? Maybe it was one of them messing with me? So I went to bed and didn't mention it. Saturday night, we're sitting around the fire pit. I tell them what I did the night before, expecting laughs. Instead, the mood shifts. My friend Liv turns pale and says, "That's not funny. I thought I saw someone standing outside my window last night." We all pause. Then Matt adds, "I heard footsteps upstairs when I went to the kitchen around 2 a.m. I thought someone was using the bathroom." I hadn't told them the full story yet: the open window, the sheet, the voice recording. Now everyone's on edge. We try to brush it off. Maybe it's animals, echoes, old building creaks. But the vibe was off. That night, I couldn't sleep. At around 3:12 a.m., I checked. I heard the floorboards creak just outside my door. This wasn't like the normal popping noises of an old house. These were deliberate, slow steps. I froze. The sound stopped. Then came the scratching. Not banging, not knocking, scratching like nails or metal on wood, against my door. I sat there in bed, holding my breath. No one else seemed to stir. I grabbed my phone and opened the voice memo app, recording the sound, just in case I could use it to freak people out later. Stupid idea in hindsight. The scratching continued for about 45 seconds. Then silence. I didn't sleep the rest of the night. The next morning, I played the audio for everyone. The second it played, Liv got up and walked outside, visibly shaken. Matt followed. I sat there, realizing I may have taken the joke too far, and now everyone was spiraling. We packed early. Everyone was weirdly quiet. Now here's where it all goes sideways. Later that night, after we got home, Liv calls me in tears. She tells me to turn on the news. Apparently, a body had been discovered in the crawlspace of the Airbnb by the cleaning crew. Not a fresh body. Old. Decayed. Possibly mummified. Police said it was a missing person who had disappeared over a year ago, a hiker. They believe he may have broken in during the off-season and gotten trapped. There was evidence he may have tried to claw his way out. They identified him by his dental records. It gets worse. The property owner was arrested. Turns out the guy had a record for squatters' rights disputes and some shady real estate stuff. One theory was that he knew the man had died and never reported it to avoid liability, just sealed the crawlspace and kept renting the place out. We'd been sleeping above a dead body. The scratching? That wasn't some sound effect or creaky pipe. One of the officers said the floor above the crawlspace had a weak spot, right under my door. Animals had likely gotten in there and disturbed the remains. What I heard might have been a raccoon. Might have been worse. The whispers I played? I don't even know how to explain this, but when I listened to the recording again, the one I made at 3:12 a.m., there were other voices on the track. Ones I didn't recognize. Not mine, not my friends, not the audio I'd programmed. Just faint, layered whispers that overlapped mine. They said things like underneath and still here. We never went back. We all got refunds and more from the Airbnb support team. There's a pending lawsuit, I think. Lives in therapy. Matt refuses to talk about it. I haven't told my parents. I can't even imagine how to begin that sentence. All I wanted to do was pull a stupid prank. Instead, I might have accidentally summoned a dead man, exposed a crime scene, and traumatized 5 of my best friends. So yeah. TIFU. TIFU by accidentally triggering a neighborhood war with the local knitting club. No, this isn't a joke. This all started because I got too ambitious with my Halloween decorations, a fog machine, and my questionable ability to read social cues. So for context, I live in a pretty cozy, suburban cul-de-sac. Nothing fancy, just a mix of families, a few older couples, and a cluster of retirement-age women who walk together every morning, carry cute dogs and purses, and knit outside like it's still 1950. They've got this book club that I've never been invited to, and I always just assumed they were harmless. You know, cookies and cardigans type. More on them later. Anyway, Halloween is my holiday. Some people go hard on Christmas, I go hard on Halloween. It's been my tradition for years to out-decorate the neighborhood. Every October, I spend weeks turning my yard into a horror movie. Think fog, motion sensors, creepy dolls, animatronic zombies. Last year, I even had fake blood running down the driveway. This year, I took it up a notch. I created what I called the abandoned asylum experience. It had an entrance arch made of fake bones, an old wheelchair I bought off Craigslist, strobe lights, screams that played on a loop, and a dummy nurse with a cracked baby doll. And of course, the fog machine. I got a new industrial strength one off Amazon that probably required a license to operate. The problem started the weekend before Halloween. I set everything up early for a trial run, invited some friends over, and we tested it out in the dark. It was intense. I might have overdone the screams. They were from some old horror movie and they sounded real. Like blood-curdling, someone is being murdered in real-time real. I didn't realize the fog had drifted across the street. And I definitely didn't realize that the scream loop could be heard half a block away at 11:45 p.m. Cue the knitting club. The next morning, I went out to get my mail and saw 3 of the knitting ladies, let's call them Barbara, Judy, and Fran, staring at my house like it had personally insulted their dead husbands. They were huddled together in pastel sweaters, clutching little fluffy dogs, visibly shaken. I smiled and gave a wave. Barbara turned to the others and said, just loud enough for me to hear, if that's not a cry for help, I don't know what is. I thought it was funny. Big mistake. Halloween night comes. My decorations are a hit. I've got a line of kids, everyone's freaking out in the best way. One dad even gave me a fist bump and said I outdid myself this year. Then the cops show up. Apparently, someone filed a noise complaint, and also a possible wellness check because there were ongoing screams coming from within the residence. I explained everything, showed them the fog machine and speakers, and they laughed. No big deal, right? Wrong. The next morning, someone had yarn bombed my mailbox. If you've never heard of yarn bombing, It's basically the most passive-aggressive form of vandalism. They knit covers for things. Like gorilla sweaters for objects. My mailbox was wrapped in bright pink yarn with little daisies and skulls sewn into it. Subtle. I thought it was funny at first. But then more yarn appeared. Every day. My porch railing. My car antenna. One day, there was a tiny knit noose hanging from my doorknob. I finally cracked and left a note on the community board. Dear creative vigilante, while I admire your knitting skills, I don't believe I deserve to be slowly yarn assassinated. Let's talk this out like adults. The next morning, all the yarn was gone. Peace? I thought so. Then came book club night. I was invited, for the first time ever. I figured this was an olive branch. I even baked brownies. When I walked in, I noticed everyone had the same smug smile, like I'd walked into a trap. I brushed it off, made small talk, and sat down. The book of the month was The Silent Patient, which I had actually read, and things seemed normal, until Barbara asked if I'd enjoyed the scream therapy scenes. I said, yeah, those were intense. She smiled sweetly and said, you seem like someone who enjoys the sound of suffering. It got dead silent. Then Fran chimes in, asking if I'd like to share my feelings about why I enjoy staging trauma for children. Someone else asked how my parents were doing and if they were aware of what I'd become. I sat there, holding a brownie, realizing this was an intervention disguised as literature. I awkwardly excused myself after 20 minutes of being psychoanalyzed by pastel-wearing assassins. I came home to find a new addition to my yard, a lawn gnome, but with a little knit straitjacket and button eyes. Tied to my mailbox. At this point, I was in too deep to back out. So I retaliated. I put up a sign that said, yarn is temporary. Fear is forever. I turned the animatronic nurse back on and dressed her in a crocheted shawl I bought from Goodwill. And I rigged my speaker to play cheerful knitting sounds, needles clacking, gentle laughter, but reversed and distorted. It sounded like a demon trying to join a sewing circle. It escalated. Every morning, I found increasingly aggressive yarn installations. My garden gnome was turned into a voodoo doll. A knitted effigy of me appeared on my porch with pins in the chest. One morning, my dog was wearing a full-body crochet onesie. But then, something changed. One night, I got a knock on my door. It was Judy, holding a bottle of wine and a large plastic container. She handed it to me without a word and walked off. Inside, banana bread, a hand-knit sweater that said peace offering, and a note, you are terrifying, but we respect the dedication. Truce? I agreed. The war was over. Now we're weirdly close. I helped them set up for their book club nights, they've mellowed out, and they knit me tiny horror props. Barbara made me a Cthulhu tea cozy. I taught Judy how to set up a fog machine for her grandkid's birthday. Fran still doesn't trust me, but she brings cookies. The asylum nurse now lives in my garage, next to the lawn gnome in a straitjacket. And every Halloween, the knitting club helps me decorate. Moral of the story? Never underestimate old ladies with needles. TIFU by accidentally sending my therapist a breakup playlist meant for my ex and making her think I was in love with her. So this happened about 3 weeks ago and the shame is just now fading enough for me to share it. For context, I, 30M, have been seeing a therapist, let's call her Dr. Lane, for the past 8 months, mostly for anxiety and some residual baggage from a pretty messy breakup with my ex, Dana. It's been really helpful. Dr. Lane is sharp, compassionate, and has this dry humor that works wonders on my spirals. I started to feel like I was making progress, gaining control over my inner chaos, even flirting with the idea of dating again. Anyway, on this particular Tuesday, I had just gotten out of a session with Dr. Lane and was feeling that sort of raw but clear-headed way you get after a good cry. That week had been tough. Dana had texted me out of the blue, trying to rekindle something, and I spent 2 sleepless nights fighting the urge to respond. I talked it through in therapy, felt proud for maintaining my boundary, and left determined to let go once and for all. I had this dramatic, cinematic idea. I would curate the ultimate breakup playlist, something to channel all my feelings, say goodbye to Dana emotionally, and give myself closure. So I spent the afternoon diving into every broody acoustic track, gut-punching ballad, and existential love song Spotify had to offer. I even gave it a stupidly intense name: This Is Me Learning to Breathe Without You. Cringe, I know. But it felt therapeutic. The plan was to send it to Dana in a moment of clarity and finality. No words, just the playlist. Like, here's the soundtrack of the pain you caused, and now I'm moving on. A melodramatic? Absolutely. But hey, closure comes in weird forms. Here's where the wheels come off. That same evening, I opened my messages to send the playlist. Now, I don't know what glitch occurred in my lizard brain, but instead of typing Dana's name, I typed Dr. Lane. Their names both start with D and, on my phone, their contact avatars are both muted colors. My fingers, guided by some subconscious betrayal, hit send. I didn't realize the mistake until the next morning. I woke up to a message from Dr. Lane: "Hi, I got your playlist. Just checking, was this meant for me?" Cue instant, full-body paralysis. I opened Spotify and saw that yes, the playlist had been viewed. I was mortified. This thing wasn't just moody, it was loaded. Track 1? Skinny Love. Track 4? Always by Bon Jovi. There was even a song titled "You Ruined New York for Me." It had voice memos in between songs, one of which had me murmuring things like "I miss the way she laughed, I meant Dana," and "I thought I'd be okay but she's everywhere, still Dana." I wanted to crawl under the earth's crust and be forgotten. I scrambled to reply with something halfway coherent. I panicked and sent, "OMG, I'm so sorry, that was meant for someone else, not you, I swear. Long story. Please disregard." She responded graciously, "Of course she did, no worries at all. Take care of yourself. We can talk about it in session if you'd like." And that would have been the end of it, except my spiraling brain couldn't leave it alone. For the next few days, I convinced myself she thought I had some massive, transference-fueled crush on her. I replayed every moment of our sessions. Had I ever stared too long? Had I overshared something weird? Did I once describe Dana in a way that sounded like her? My brain was throwing red flags like it was the Super Bowl. By the time our next session rolled around, I was a sweaty, anxious mess. She started off normal, asked how my week was, but I couldn't keep it together. I blurted, "I just want to clarify that I don't have feelings for you." Dead silence. She blinked. Then said, "Okay. Thank you for clarifying that." Which made it worse. Now I had made it a thing that wasn't a thing. I'd basically told her, "Hey, I definitely don't love you, in case you were wondering," when she probably wasn't even thinking that to begin with. I watched the faintest twitch of a smile appear at the corner of her mouth. Not mocking, just bemused. Like a person watching a cat get its head stuck in a tissue box. I wanted to die. To her credit, she steered the session back on track and even gently helped me see how this whole debacle was actually kind of a gift. That my need for control, my obsessive fear of being misunderstood, all came from the same anxious place I'd been working to heal. And she wasn't wrong. It was revealing. But still, the damage was done. Every session since then, I've had to live with the knowledge that my therapist heard me whisper "I miss the way she laughed" while a Hosier song played in the background. Fast forward to now, I've made peace with it. Sort of. Dr. Lane has been totally professional and kind. In fact, I think the whole thing humanized me a little more in her eyes. We've even joked, a little, about my unfortunate playlist passion. As for Dana, I never did send her the playlist. I deleted it. Turns out, curating your pain into 34 tracks is cathartic enough, you don't actually need the grand romantic gesture. Besides, now the playlist is infamous. It's become a meme among my friends. They renamed it Songs to Cry To when you accidentally confess love to your therapist and occasionally add terrible songs to it. One day I opened it and someone had slipped in Careless Whisper. So yeah. TIFU by sending my therapist a breakup playlist and making her think I was in love with her. But I also learned that sometimes, embarrassment is just unprocessed vulnerability wearing a Halloween costume. And that Spotify should really have a asterisk, are you sure? Asterisk feature before you send something emotionally catastrophic to the wrong person. So this happened a few months ago and the fallout is still ongoing. I, 29M, have a complicated relationship with my dad, 55M. My parents divorced when I was 10, and my dad slowly faded out of my life after that. Not a deadbeat exactly, just distant. Birthdays and Christmas presents were usually late, sometimes forgotten, phone calls dwindled, and he moved a few times without telling me. Eventually, all I had was a couple of old addresses, disconnected numbers, and a vague idea that he was somewhere in Arizona. Fast forward to this past January. I'd been thinking about trying to reconnect. I'm in a better place now, emotionally and financially, and I thought maybe if I reached out, we could have a real conversation. Closure or maybe even a new beginning. I wasn't expecting a tearful reunion, but I figured it was worth a shot. Only problem, I couldn't find him. I tried calling the last number I had, dead, sent mail to the last address I knew, returned to sender, and even tried finding him on social media, nothing. I googled him, searched court records, the works. Nada. I was starting to worry that something had happened to him. Morbid thoughts crept in. What if he died and nobody told me? What if he was in jail? What if he needed help? That's when I had the incredibly dumb idea to hire someone. Not like a PI. That would have made sense. Instead, I found this guy online through a forum I probably shouldn't have been on. Let's call him Rick. Rick advertised himself as an independent information retrieval specialist. I didn't know that was code for bounty hunter at the time. His profile had a bunch of flashy pictures of him in tactical gear, a write-up about his time in the military, and some glowing reviews from people who sounded suspiciously like they were trying to collect debts. I messaged him anyway. I explained I was looking for my dad, who I hadn't heard from in years. Gave him all the info I had, name, birth date, old addresses, any detail I could think of. He said he could track him down for a modest fee, and I Venmo'd him $500. Within 48 hours, he said he'd made contact and would be sending me an update. I thought that meant he had found him. No. Apparently, Rick took make contact to mean literally go to his house unannounced in person, armed, with a bulletproof vest and everything. And not just go, but confront him. Like, question him, like my dad was a fugitive or something. I found all this out when I got a call from the Maricopa County Sheriff's Office 3 days later. My dad had called the cops because a heavily armed man had shown up at his front door, asking for him by name, claiming he was sent by his son, and trying to push his way in to verify his identity. Rick, for whatever reason, thought this was a normal way to operate. According to the police report I later obtained, he told the responding deputies that he was assisting in a family matter and that he wasn't aware of any law preventing him from checking on a missing person. The officers apparently didn't arrest him, but they gave him a very stern talking to. My dad, understandably, freaked the hell out. After things cooled down, the cops helped facilitate a phone call between us. It was awkward. So awkward. My dad was confused, scared, and more than a little pissed. He told me he hadn't been missing, he just didn't want to be found. Apparently, he'd been laying low because of some old debts and ex-friends, and he intentionally stayed off the grid. He'd moved to Arizona to avoid drama, and here I was, sending a bootleg dog the bounty hunter to knock on his door. And the worst part? My dad had actually been thinking about reaching out to me. He said he'd looked at my LinkedIn profile a few months back, had my number saved in his phone, and just wasn't sure if I'd want to hear from him. Then I sent a wannabe mercenary to his doorstep, and, well, that ship sailed hard. The fallout was brutal. He blocked my number, wrote me an email telling me to never contact him again, and then blocked me there too. My aunt, his sister, called me a psycho and told me I'd burned the last bridge. Even my mom was like, "What the hell were you thinking?" I tried reaching out to Rick for a refund or even just an explanation, and all he said was, "Mission complete." He then blocked me on everything. Now I'm out $500, my dad probably thinks I'm a stalker, and my entire extended family is giving me the silent treatment. My girlfriend, who warned me this was a terrible idea, refers to the incident as the Arizona situation and brings it up whenever I claim to be good at making decisions. I probably deserve that. So yeah. That's how I torched a fragile potential reunion with my estranged father by accidentally hiring a bounty hunter to hunt him down like he owed me 20 grand and skipped bail. Moral of the story: if you're trying to reconnect with a lost family member, don't Google how to find someone fast and then hire the sketchiest dude with night vision goggles in his profile picture. Use a private investigator. Or maybe just send a letter and wait. Today I ed up by destroying my boss's wedding. Like, completely ruined it. And the worst part? I didn't even mean to go. Let me back up. I work at a mid-sized marketing agency, and my boss, Amanda, is one of those energetic, always put-together women who somehow makes you feel lazy even when you're burning out at 70 hours a week. She's a perfectionist. Her Instagram looks like a curated lifestyle magazine, and she's been planning her wedding to this dude Trevor, who looks like he was carved from the smug jawline of a GQ cover model, for over 2 years. Everyone in the office knew about the wedding. How could we not? We heard every detail: table linen swatches, signature cocktails named after their pets, choreographed entrance dances, you name it. She booked this fancy private resort in St. Lucia for a full week. It was going to be intimate. Just close friends and family. And, somehow, me. To this day, I don't know if it was an HR mix-up or Amanda accidentally clicking all staff on the invite, but I got an email saying, "You're invited," with a link to RSVP. I thought it was some kind of team bonding getaway. I didn't question it. I mean, I've only been at the company for like 9 months, and Amanda's never said more than 6 consecutive words to me, but I figured maybe she was one of those everyone's family here types. I RSVP'd yes. 2 weeks later, there's a follow-up email from her assistant with travel info and room assignments. Still nothing indicating this was a mistake. So I booked my flights. I mean, a free trip to St. Lucia? Yes, please. I even splurged on a new linen shirt and those obnoxious sandals that make your feet look like leather-armored potatoes. I was ready. So I show up at this ridiculously fancy resort, trying to play it cool. At check-in, they give me one of those fruity drinks in a coconut and a room key. I'm escorted to a beachfront villa that costs more per night than my rent for a month. I'm thinking, damn, maybe I made the right career move. The first red flag was dinner that night. I walk into this private dining area and immediately realize something's off. Everyone there knows each other. They're hugging, laughing, catching up like it's a high school reunion. There are maybe 40 people total. And then there's me, standing awkwardly near the shrimp cocktail like the new kid at summer camp. Amanda spots me. Her face goes through a weird sequence: surprise, confusion, and then a smile so forced it looked like it physically hurt her. She walks over and goes, "Oh. I didn't realize you were able to make it." I played it cool. Said something about how I wouldn't miss it. She just nodded and walked away before I could ask what the actual hell was happening. The ceremony was the next day. Beautiful setup on the beach. I'm sitting in the back row, trying to be invisible, when I suddenly feel very not okay. Like, my stomach was staging a coup against my entire body. I started sweating. Not the kind you can dab away with a napkin, the kind where your shirt sticks to you and people start asking if you're all right. I rush back to my villa and make it just in time to destroy the toilet in a way that will haunt that plumbing forever. We're talking full evacuation. I blame the fish tacos from lunch. Or maybe the 6 rum punches. I can't be sure. Here's where it really goes sideways. In my fever dream state, I remember I brought a travel-sized bottle of Pepto. I dig through my toiletries, knock over my cologne, and hear a clink. I look down and realize I've shattered the little decorative glass bottle of essential oils that was on the sink. It smelled like lavender and sandalwood and was probably imported from a monk's private stash in Tibet. Whatever. I clean it up best I can and lie down. The next morning, I wake up to chaos. Apparently, some guests, including the groom's mother, had a severe allergic reaction to something in the air. There's panic about a contaminant. People coughing, eyes watering, some hives. They think it might be the floral arrangements. Turns out it wasn't the flowers, it was me. Or rather, the essential oil I broke and failed to properly clean up. The cleaning staff had wiped the counter with a towel, then reused that towel on several guest villas. The allergen got spread around like botanical napalm. The resort goes into full hazmat mode. Guests are relocated. Amanda is in tears. Trevor is yelling at staff. The reception is postponed indefinitely. And I still don't realize any of this is my fault until I hear one of the resort staff explaining the situation near the bar later that day. I'm halfway through another coconut drink when I piece it together like the world's dumbest detective. I go pale. Like, paler than usual, which is impressive for someone whose default skin tone is printer paper. I panic and do the only thing I can think of. I check out early and book the next flight home. Left a handwritten note that just said congratulations, with a sad face drawn underneath. Monday rolls around. I go into the office and Amanda is not there. Word is she extended her stay to replan everything. No one seems to know I was involved. Yet. I've been keeping my head down, pretending like nothing happened, but HR just scheduled a quick chat with me tomorrow. I'm pretty sure I'm toast. So yeah. I accidentally crashed a destination wedding I was never meant to be at, poisoned the groom's mother, and possibly ended the marriage before it started. And somehow, none of it was intentional. TIFU by faking a British accent for 2 years and getting invited to my fake cousin's wedding in Liverpool. Okay, so this all started as a joke. I never expected it to snowball into something that would give me crushing anxiety every time I got a phone call. I'm a 27-year-old American dude working remotely in marketing. About 2 years ago, during the COVID era of Zoom happy hours, I joined a random open Discord server dedicated to international movie lovers. There were people from all over, Australia, Germany, the UK, South Africa, and in one of the voice chats, everyone was goofing around doing impressions of different accents. When it was my turn, I did what I thought was a hilariously bad British accent. I went full-on Oliver Twist, "Please sir, may I have some more?" But to my surprise, they loved it. Someone said I sounded like I was from somewhere near Manchester, which I didn't even know was a real place at the time. Geography isn't my strong suit. Anyway, I ran with it. I thought, why not? These people are cool, and it's just the internet. So I introduced myself as Oliver, a 28-year-old guy from Stockport, UK, who worked in IT and lived with 2 mates in a flat. I threw in little stories about taking the train into Manchester and ordering chips instead of fries, calling garbage rubbish, and casually referencing pubs I'd Googled 5 minutes before. I even downloaded a British keyboard layout so I could spell words like favorite and realize properly. The group loved Oliver. Way more than they liked me as myself. I don't know why, but having a British accent gave me this weird charisma boost. People asked me for my thoughts on British politics, football clubs, the NHS, things I had no clue about. I'd do frantic Googling while pretending I was just thinking it over. Eventually, I became a kind of unofficial moderator in the group. I hosted trivia nights, movie watch-alongs, and one guy even said he felt like Oliver was his internet big brother. That one kind of stung, honestly. But the real problem started with Emily. Emily was another regular. She's from Canada, hilarious, into horror movies, and we just clicked. She and I would stay on the server hours after everyone else logged off, talking about everything and nothing. I started to really like her, really like her. But she liked Oliver. Not me. So I kept the charade going. I kept being Oliver. We exchanged numbers, FaceTimed, yes, with a fake accent, and started what can only be described as a long-distance, emotionally intense, completely fraudulent situationship. I got weirdly good at the accent. I practiced constantly. Watched hours of UK YouTubers. Even changed my Netflix region to the UK with a VPN so I wouldn't get tripped up when she mentioned a show. Fast forward to about 6 months ago, one of the UK guys in the server, Callum, tells the group that his sister's getting married in Liverpool and he's inviting a few of us to come over. It was supposed to be a big, goofy, transatlantic meetup. I tried to bow out gracefully, but then Emily texted me privately and said, "I'm going if you are, Ollie." That's when the panic really set in. I didn't know what to do. I started Googling how to disappear without hurting someone's feelings and can you fake an injury for a year. But then I thought, maybe I could become Oliver for real? Just for a weekend? I had the passport. I had savings. I even bought a second phone with a UK number to make it all feel more legit. So, 2 weeks ago, I flew to the UK. I spent 13 hours cramming British slang, memorizing my fake backstory, practicing phrases in public restrooms like a psycho. I met Callum at the train station, and he hugged me like we'd been mates for a decade. That was both heartwarming and terrifying. Then I met Emily. She looked just like her profile pictures, but realer, warmer. She ran up, hugged me, and said, "God, your voice is even cuter in person." And I wanted to vomit. But instead, I said something about how the train from Euston was proper shite and she laughed, and my soul died a little. The wedding was lovely. Picturesque countryside, string lights, people yelling "Oi, oi" while downing pints. I felt like I was inside a Richard Curtis film. But the whole time, I felt like I was being hunted by my own guilt. I couldn't enjoy a single moment without feeling like a fraud. I kept worrying someone would say, "Hey, you sound like you're from Chicago, not Cheshire," or ask me what school I went to and I'd have a stroke mid-sentence. That night, after too many drinks and an emotional first slow dance, Emily kissed me. And I kissed her back. Then she whispered, "I've wanted this since the night we watched The Shining together." I wish I could say I came clean then. But I didn't. I kept it going. We spent the rest of the night together. It was amazing. And awful. And amazing. I flew back to the US the next day, still in full character. She texted me immediately when I landed, asking when she could visit me in Stockport. That's when I knew it had gone too far. So I did what any emotionally stunted moron would do, I ghosted her. 3 days. No reply. Then I sent the longest text message I've ever written, explaining everything. That I wasn't Oliver. That I was some guy named Max from Wisconsin. That I was lonely. That it started as a joke, then turned into a game, then turned into a full-on identity crisis. That I didn't mean to hurt her. But I did. She hasn't responded. She left the Discord server. Callum sent me one message, "Mate. What the actual fuck? I deserve it." So now I'm back home, feeling like the world's dumbest spy, unsure if I'll ever emotionally recover from building a fake life and setting it on fire. I miss her every day. I even miss Oliver, in a sick way. He was a better man than me, confident, funny, interesting. And British. Now I just sit here, watching Love Island, eating crisps I ordered online, and waiting for the inevitable documentary someone will make about me, the man who catfished himself. Thank you for watching until the end. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss new videos. Also, leave a comment, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Your support and engagement mean a lot to me. See you in the next video.